Right, and so I guess this is sort of just an open forum where we're really happy to take your input. We drafted some potential things that we wanted to get your feedback on and also might help stimulate discussion. So the first one do you want me to take the first one? I'm going to just randomly alternate. So timing of the challenges, so the end of this grant period basically goes through September of 2019. So, you know, obviously we're thinking about what the next sort of, how do I say, what will happen to the project after this particular grant period. That's something we're thinking about right now. But we know that we can have one more full end-to-end grant challenge envisioned in this grant period. So I think we discussed already that we were thinking of having the next full challenge possibly September, to open on September 1, but we'll go ahead and circulate a survey so we can get input from everybody, not just those who were able to be here. But if people, I mean, it seems like, does anybody have any suggestions for changing the timing of the feedback of the challenges, or I guess that seems mostly fine.
I have a question, which is, we sort of squeezed in stage 1B this time for those of you who, so basically stage 1 was predict the poses without our giving you any crystal structures beyond those in the PDB. Stage 1B was, okay, here are the protein structures without the ligands. So now, you know, it's self-docking, although I don't think we told you which one went with which. So was that interesting? Was that useful? Or
thumbs up, I see.
A thumb up? Any other? Okay, another nodding. Okay, good. So stage 1B. So, and I guess the other thing I always worry about is, you know, we do these things. Are we leaving you the right amount of time for, you know, stage 1, stage 1B, stage 2? Do you guys think the timing is about right? Would you extend or compress any of these intervals? And it's okay. Okay. And the other thing I would say is that, you know, if there are afterthoughts, send us emails or whatever. You know, if necessary, we can have another survey. But I guess maybe we're doing okay. Yeah.
Based on the because like for Grand Challenge 3, we suggested if you only have time to do certain ones, do that first. And then get to the 6 challenges. With the GC4, those are all about equal size, so that it's our preference which one you do.
Yeah, in this case, I don't know. I guess I would try to treat them equally, but
well, we could ask
yeah.
Steve.
Since the base hasn't been done before,
yeah.
I think that would be the obvious one to put as the highest priority.
So I can see that, and let me just look at it the other way around, which is that I think this, if we did cathepsin, it would be our first time heavily revisiting a target, and I think people have expressed, and specifically, I think Ron Levy came to me and said, you know, these are unrealistic challenges because in an actual project in pharma, you'd be learning as you go through the structures. And so here we're giving everybody one shot and they live or die on that one shot. And would it be realistic to give people a chance to revisit something? So. What was the question?
Are there different chemotypes or so?
Is Scott here? Well, you don't know.
There's a few, I mean, there's 2 major series. So I think that that's pretty much it. You guys have the majority of the data. Yeah.
Are we so?
I mean, I gave what we could give, so I think it's really like these 2 major series.
Just in the sense that I think you could say something about what lessons people would learn, and you could ask whether those are the lessons you want people to learn. So I think one lesson learned would be what you should really be using shape overlays if you're going after this leads in this lead series in CAT-S. And so if you go back again, you're going to see a lot more ligand-based design, and people will do better. But is that necessarily driving progress? I think it's more just.
Well, yeah. There's. I guess that's one way to look at it.
I think. Good.
No, he's fine.
Well, I think that the motivation that I heard in a sense was that by doing these one-shot things, we make the performance of the methods look worse in this setting than they might look in the pharma setting. So, you know, I don't know that need to be a concern of ours, but it's an interesting, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's going on in pharma is that the refinements that are being done are not generally not on how the scaffold lines, but how you're positioning the arbor, where you're predicting the positions of the arbors.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
it's quite a different.
About the connection challenge, I was curious why no one did FEP. I would have thought that once you got the kind of the center right, maybe that with the sampling that would help. That might help, I don't know, but no, there was only one FEP entry.
Wasn't very rewarding.
Well, yeah, I mean,
We don't really know the
Yeah, we don't know.
I don't know, we don't remember which didn't actually, if you don't pose it right, I can't believe FEP's been doing better than any other, if scoring
But
method.
the poses are based on truth. The predictions of affinity are based on truth.
Not in all cases. I mean, there's sometimes where you have to predict where the positive skip will
But if I
be.
may, I mean, this was a question I think Huawei was just asking us about the poster. We can look at the accuracy of the predictions for just those ligands where poses were released. So if you go to stage 2, the poses are out, there's 24 or so with structures. So they're, you know what they are. So you could do FEP without having to worry about, Interesting.
I was thinking that the time frames might be a little short for trying to do FEP, especially if you don't have like a dedicated machine to do it, you're depending on a national resource that might have a queue.
I guess what would be a more reasonable window? So right now you'd have basically 2 months, right? We allow 2 months once we release all structured data.
Could we make some time available in some way?
One possibility might be for the resources. Amazon we could arrange for it.
What do you mean, like let them run on D3R machines?
Something like that.
Yeah, we could think about. I mean, we could think about it. Like, I don't think we can make promises standing here, but about making D3R compute cycles available to folks who are interested in running the more intensive challenges. Stephen?
The other potential source of short-term access to pre-computing is the director's allocation of the San Diego Supercomputer Center.
Yes, another option.
EM challenges, fitting models into maps or creating maps from images. The director was extremely generous with an allocation of time to
Cool.
help people who
That's great.
who didn't have spare capacity in their labs because of course they're processing, they're doing real research as well as trying to develop methods.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, I didn't even think that we could ask Mike.
Yeah.
So I would talk to Mike Moore and see what we can do.
Cool.
I think it's in Mike's interest to support this kind of project.
Probably.
Yeah, you
That's a great
could put it
suggestion.
in there. Okay,
You wrote it down.
I did.
Then, that also reminds me, this is a total non sequitur, but if you have a poster up and you want to take it home, you don't forget to remove it off the wall on the other side of the mic.
Yeah, posters that are left are going to get, we're going to change the authors and we're going to show them. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one. So I guess the next one was, so we focused on pose prediction and affinity prediction or ranking. And the question is there an interest, assuming that, there was a way to put it together in other types of data, kinetics, binding kinetics, fragment-based design. And the last one is something that came up with some folks that there may be, we're not sure how to configure this, but is it the diamond light source, are interested in the possibility that they would give us some information on the protein and we would help design compounds or pick fragments, and then some subset of those would get made. So we would collectively be doing the ligand design. Now, how exactly to get, feedback on what works and what doesn't work across more methods, and we could probably get compounds made, I'm not sure, but it's an intriguing idea. If
I can go in the same direction, I was thinking about some orphan targets. So, because a lot of, work has been done based on previous available data on ligands, similarity, and so on. But what happens if you start with a new target?
Right.
And it goes in the same direction. So let's evaluate the methods without preliminary data. This can be another direction.
Maybe Stephen could blank out a segment of the PDB so that we could have a blind. No, but I don't mean to.
Have a death wish.
Yeah.
So one other thing, and we do this with one of the earlier TDT challenges, is to do a virtual screening challenge.
Yeah.
And we got molecules to actually commit to supplying those compounds, and then there was somebody at St. Jude's who actually ran those in a mass. So there are people out there in academia who are doing screening on orphan targets, and it's relatively cheap. I mean, it's a whole lot cheaper than getting somebody to synthesize compounds.
That's cool.
Yeah. I don't know what you're gonna say, but I think that's great. And just to the synthesis part, actually the folks at DLS, because I guess they have some collaboration with XChem or something, but they actually they've said they would be happy to commit the synthesis support, but it'd be more of like, how would we judge the selection, I think.
Yeah, could we get enough? I mean, if we had 20 submissions or 50 submissions, would we do 50 screens, or how many, with cherry picking?
One screen,
right.
And then you would buy, let's say you buy 1,000 compounds. I think you could, so you would say, okay, everybody who submits is going to pick their their top 10 or whatever.
Right.
And then, and it has to be out of this pool. So it's like, here's 100,000 molecules from the E molecules catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
that's
going to
totally
virtually screen these,
Yeah.
and then, we're going to buy
That's awesome.
your top ones, and we're going to actually experimentally screen these. I mean, that's really cool, because I think a lot of people in this room probably never get a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To compounds running the mass.
Yeah. Jeff and then David.
Just very quickly, it'd be interesting, like we do with someone who does on bioassay, where they do have the results of big assays run against target-based screens or something. To see if we could get pre-release data about that. And how people predict that.
That's interesting.
David?
I disagree. I mean, of course, if they say that, I think is really the best one. There was an earlier discussion about the value you could bring to pharma. I think this would be one of the most valuable things you could show, is that you can actually produce information on sets. When you're dealing with all things that do bind to some extent, it's not quite the same information. But when you do it prospectively, it's a little risky. Like one of the key ones just fell through and didn't happen.
Yeah, it could turn out.
And so the idea of if you can get screening data from pharma, where the task is now, instead of here's 100, here's 1,000,000 or 10,000, and tell us what the hits are, I'd be very interested.
So I would be interested in input from pharma on this, because the kinase data sets we did here were based on a single concentration screen, and we actually then went in and cherry picked sets for which we wanted KDs to get measured. And there were a lot of compounds where we expecting one thing to happen in order to make a pretty data set, and they didn't come out that way. So my confidence, I guess the question is, it would be nice to have a screen where there was reason to believe that it was highly reliable.
Most things you have to use a large number of compounds. What is to sort of narrow down.
I see, I haven't thought about it. Yeah. So there's
Maybe, and then John.
okay.
Ben?
It's a little bit difficult because you have to go back and make sure that those compounds are not like they're not RCC compounds, they're not aggregated.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't interfere with the reporter in the assay.
Right.
So then that ends up being a lot more work too. Because what would you do if somebody found them? Would you actually want to see KIs on all those? Well, maybe
Right.
we don't have
The capability, yeah. We have to think about it.
Well, we could, I mean, if there was, I don't know if the SGC thing is still ongoing, if that's an opportunity that's ongoing, but it potentially could be done within that.
You need to go back for
Just, I don't know.
to contract out more
Something like
measurements
that.
from them.
somebody has a project.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, I'm sorry,
Here's John next.
I'm sorry.
Just to follow on the idea of doing really good assays prospectively, if it's something for which there's a value or set of relevant assays, we talked to NCATS previously, and they have lots of expertise in screening capacity for doing these if the molecules from the supply or from the clean sets of their library. So that might be another group who wants to have
interesting. Yeah.
Kinase challenge was met with selectivity also, isn't it, right?
One part of it was.
Not this way, but that way. I mean, how do as far as compound is selected for one kinase?
Well, I'm sorry, what was
like just that we didn't actually really analyze that component, that we didn't really see, I don't think, an analysis of the data.
I think what he may be saying, he'd like us fewer compounds across more kinases. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that would be the next question.
Oh, what was the first question?
You already have, right?
Yeah.
There were 3 kinases with a
Look what happened as far as our ability to
Actually be selected.
You mean in the evaluations?
Exactly.
Indeed, we need to look at that. Yes.
and in the future, maybe wider.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just because we ran out of time. We're still digging, and as you all are also still digging in on that data.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Yeah, the next one's pretty straightforward. Future workshops. Do people prefer face-to-face? We also did a webinar last year that I think went very well. We had great attendance from all around the world. So is there any sort of preference for that? We talked at dinner last night, the fall ACS meeting in 2019, which will be right at the end of the grant period, is here in San Diego. So we could do what we did 2 years ago, which is piggyback a D3R workshop on that ACS meeting. That seems to also make it easier for folks to sometimes connect to. The flip is that you're out travel for longer, so that makes it harder for some people, but there's always 2 sides to every coin. Yeah. Oh, you say thumbs up, thumbs up.
Thumbs up for being up at the ACS. Oh, another thumb up. Another. Wait, that wasn't a thumb.
What was that?
That wasn't a thumb.
Oh boy.
Okay, so positive response to ACS.
Yeah, and we can also include that in a survey.
Yeah, that's pretty clear though.
Yeah, but that was pretty clear.
I just want to thank you for doing the webinar at the same time. That's really valuable to the community. I'm glad you did that.
Good,
And
even
also glad to
painful.
be here, but we appreciate it.
Thank you, Romy. Romy really
Sure,
did that.
that was, yeah. Mostly got it to work.
Okay. Okay, and so I guess the next is, I'm really just drawing on the discussion here that Pat, led off, and then we continued is whether we should try to formalize an effort on, initially Romy said a workshop, and then we felt maybe a working group or something like that to come out with, an article, some standards, some software. Would there be
software?
Yeah. So is there interest in? Do people think that would be valuable? Are people interested in participating? Sweet. Okay.
Good. Would you lead it? We can negotiate. Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. So that's another thumbs up. You guys are so quiet this afternoon.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, also from our perspective, that would be valuable, right? Because what happens when we do get a lot of feedback from the community at different times about, why you use median instead of mean. I mean, that's sort of a more trivial example, but like really digging in on what are the best metrics for particular challenges is really something that we need to come to consensus as a community and actually really practice this. So.
Ben.
Are people online right now chatting any ideas they have, or are they?
Interesting.
If people give, they are able to do that, and when they do that, there's a little flashing chat.
Why don't we tell them, invite them to, or
Okay,
we can try.
if you're out there and you want to be giving us, for those of you who are dialing in at home, if you'd like to give us feedback, you can type it into the chat box. And we will collect it. I think we lost a lot of people at the, we've had actually pretty good attendance. I don't know if folks in here have been logged on. We had 100 webinar participants and, different people tuning in at different times for different parts. But when we just broke for lunch, my laptop ran out of batteries. I think it cut the webinar. So I think we actually lost a bunch of people when we started it back up. But right now there's only about, I think maybe 10 or 15 people online.
So
Yeah.
I was thinking it might also be nice in the next challenge to just provide a forum where participants could communicate during the course of this, maybe a Slack channel or
That's a good
something.
idea.
Just because, that way somebody can say, hey, this structure looks kind of funky, I'm not sure,
Are you on Twitter?
No, because I don't want to see people talking about it. There's some website where people have, sections. Yes.
Posting there, more static. You want Slack as like a progressive discussion. I can come back later and chime in with that.
Yeah, I like that. Where there's some, you can just come in when you want and see what's going on and just ask a question and have others who are working on the same data set.
Yeah, I mean, that's also nice because otherwise what happens is people will email us questions individually and then we have to, either send
But then we do have to make sure that we almost have to sort of, I guess, when somebody signs up for the challenge, we have to send them a Slack invite. Yeah, we could do that. Okay.
Getter is another option.
Getter, okay.
More to
Don't know. GIE. Okay.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Implementable. The rest of these things we've sort of already talked about, with the exception maybe of, I guess, website posting. I think most of you have seen, we've been trying to put things up on the web, the evaluations. We've been trying to increase what we post to share, including now evaluations pages, which are pretty rudimentary, but people can see, the results. If there's any feedback on that, I guess, let us know. Other things you'd like to see, et cetera.
There's like an issue tracker thing so that people have problems with the data or detect problems in our descriptions of the data, they can say it right there. Some people were participating, finding out about issues that way, as opposed to having to happen by people emailing us and us to,
Got it.
it's a version.
Yeah.
Version.
That's a good suggestion.
Thanks.
We'll track downloads now.
We could do that with the data net.
So we can't track like who downloaded in the sense of having a user request. So that's the downside.
Mm-hmm.
And it also does make it way easier for other people in the future to be able to see access it. The exact versions people had and the updated versions.
Right.
Yeah. Ben, did you have a comment on that?
I was just looking to the next, the one on automation.
Oh, yeah, sure. We can go there, I think.
You already have some standard packages for automation, right? You have the docking protocols.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's typically a null model, but that's an easy model, and it could be a benchmark that could be published right away. So people could see that for themselves, maybe, if they want to switch to that at stage 2 or something like that, if that model significantly outperformed their model, then they could switch to that docking routine or that workflow or something.
You talk, so which workflows?
Use the
You'll be
kelp
releasing
ones.
some.
Like the kelp ones?
Yeah, the
like
kelp.
workflow.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
You have the kelp stuff here,
Right.
but you also just, even in your D3R challenge, you'll release more data at stage 2, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if once you release some post predictions, then I think people can see how well those perform,
Right.
and decide if they want to switch over.
Yeah, well, if we could release the evaluations right off.
Yeah, some RMSDs or something, then people
From
can
different
decide if
people's
they want
methods.
to
Right.
switch over to that.
One thing we've also talked about is running all the D3R challenges through kelp to, that Jeff's inline, and even other people's servers, we could exploit other people's external servers, but the ones that Jeff and Chris and others implemented with sort of auto-doc-lide, just everything default, are sort of a null model in a sense, or baseline that we'd like people to be able to, go beyond ultimately.
So I don't know how that can exactly be used, but
right. Cool.
Well, getting more towards automation and workflow, one possibility would be that maybe one day after this type of event, there would be like a hackathon where you could teach people, okay, this is how you set up your protocol to containerize it, whatever. And also, I think some people need some guidance for that. And there will be some kind of hackathon day either before or after the meeting or online. I think that's really very useful.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Actually, I have to say that was one of the things we queried people that in one of the last surveys we did, and it was pretty well supported. But then, yeah, we didn't quite pull it together. Also, because it's a little bit outside maybe the RFA bounds and so forth. But I agree totally. It's something also that maybe could be co-supported by other efforts. Jeff. All right.
I wonder whether, I don't know, Wolsey could hold a hackathon.
I know.
I mean,
I was going to say that as well.
Okay.
That might be something that we talk to consultants about.
We can share our mailing list. No, I mean, we can, if people are interested, we can connect them up.
I'll just tweet at them.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Cool. Are there other things that, we just went through a list of things we thought of, but there may be things that you've been
burning to tell us.
Quiet annoyances you can finally air, or enthusiasms or directions.
So we had, Mel and I in our presentation had some recommendations. One of them was, and I talked to Mike back there in terms of using more metadata in some of the challenges. That was so you could, when submitting a, so you have all this in a database, you could always pull it out later. One of the things was if you submitted 50 different methods or ways of doing something, can you say ahead of time which ones you thought would be better? So it's high confidence, medium confidence, low confidence.
Right.
It would just be a way of assessing, especially if people are getting time winners, out of this, and if you throw lots of different.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you just tried everything and got something right.
Exactly.
How confident were you? If you sign everything with the same confidence, that pretty much means no confidence. You can't say this is better. You have no idea.
Right.
So you had that many. So how many challenges? It was all this captured, so you could say this person, this challenge submitted 50 different scores for this stage, that kind of thing. And then I see in the automation that the methods are kind of thinking about how do you chunk them up into pieces so that then you could pull back the method. And that's just someone made a comment about having individual containers for each step rather than just putting everything in one.
Yeah.
But also keeping that, having consistent meta tags so that you could track this.
Indeed, yeah, the meta tags. We didn't really do it, but we've been trying to do things like that, even just for trying to dissect the protocol files, so that we can, assessing the protocols is very challenging, obviously, given.
Right, so as an evaluator,
Yeah. So for example, you just have kind of a generic workflow. And I hate to make the submission process even more complicated, but how you have a pull down or something where you say, how did you the pertinent or
right? Maybe I wonder whether we could consult with you guys, since you have some ideas from having worked through it, and we've sort of thought about it a little bit. We had checkbox. Did you look at the structures and intervene or something like that? We had a few things like that. So maybe you could help us formulate some additional ones that you think would be useful. Yeah.
So we graphed on that and then I tried to correlate that back with the post prediction, and I got a slide that I didn't want to explain because it made no sense to me. But I think that if we had that information in the machine learning form, then we could find correlations which otherwise would just vary.
Yeah.
Like I said, we had different ones. We had one or two just questions, and then more steel, water, whatever it is. Extra questions and ask.
You'll get more evaluators who will be willing to come forward because it's fun to actually look at the data, but it's not fun to actually try to muddle through the long,
No, it's not fun to read the protocol.
I know.
Not for 400 entries. Yeah.
Good. Oh, look.
So one comment about multiple submission from the same group, because another purpose about D3R is not only see how well you do, but also to test ideas. So that's why it's also.
No, that's great, it's fine. It's just that if you're planning on saying, my method did great, it would be good to know. You know. Because we get a lot of, oh, my method did great. They come to us and say, wow, my software did great. So it'd be nice, like,
Well, that goes to something that I think Adrian mentioned, which is whether there should be some sort of editorial control on the statistics that people are allowed to put in their articles, which I mean, I find a little bit scary to try to impose or be the statistics police, but maybe, but might actually mesh with the evaluation working group. Maybe we can come up with, basically, if this is your table of data, these are your statistics, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe even, I mean, I don't know how quickly the working group can come to formulate recommendations, but if we could even try to execute on some of those for this next issue.
Exactly.
And then have the referees, when we're guest editing, say, could you follow these, you know, see what you can do to maintain these standards.
You said that you think really love these, make sure you have like your authoritative statistics. You keep everybody up online, you point that out to all your viewers and your viewers. So if anybody provides certain statistics, cross check.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're thinking like a von Peroni adjustment or something for multiple submissions, or
See that again?
not complicated.
I missed it. What did you say?
I was thinking just when you make a submission, you just have a pull down and you say whether it's your top submission or one of your.
I see.
I think it was
exploration.
No, I think we were onto a somewhat different issue, although interestingly related. It was when I was more thinking of is given that you've submitted one panel of, you know, one method, what are the statistics that should be obtained from that, and what are the error bars on those statistics, as opposed to the challenge of handling multiple submissions from one participant. I wasn't aware of this correction you're talking about. That's
I don't know if it would apply here, but I mean, if you do, you know, if you take 10 shots at something,
yeah,
and you adjust,
right?
You know, you have to scale down your
yes,
the probability of actually hitting the target.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have an unrelated question. That has more to do with the preparation of the protein. Have you ever looked at the submission to see how the proteins are differently prepared? Maybe histidines being flipped, different protonation states that have been analyzed.
We have the information, but we've never had the bandwidth to actually get into it, honestly, which is part of why we invite people to take a look at what's up.
We strongly encourage. I'd like, yeah, I know it would be really great. Yeah, but exactly.
You have information.
Somebody could do it. It is there. Yeah. Other comments? Sort of winding down. But we can always take comments at other times, obviously, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thanks to everybody.
What was the kelp direction?
Yeah, we had a couple in there because we had talked about kelp pretty extensively, I thought, earlier, but this was just any feedback on directions for kelp. I mean, one question that we have that actually we didn't discuss yet was one thing we want to do is start making the evaluations also available online. And I think it would be awesome to implement something all the way like they've done with Cameo, you know, for the cast predictions, but right now we don't have too many participants and we have to think about really how we implement that and so forth. Like, can we just borrow directly from what they have, which is a really nice interface to show like weekly how things are changing? Do you have subgroups like developers can see particular charts versus anybody? These kind of decisions need to be made by the community, I think. Not later today, but he's obviously somebody who we'll keep informed on that. But if people have suggestions about what they would like to see, let us know.
Well, you know, here's a thought. I'm not maybe not a full thought, but the Cameo is based on, I think, publicly available servers. So if I have a protein sequence and I want to get a structure prediction, I send it to the server, I wait and I get it back. So everything they're evaluating is going through a publicly available server.
Is that true?
I believe so.
But they have beta methods too.
Well, everything that they have showing publicly.
Oh, okay.
Right, that might be a natural thing. So Shashin has a publicly available server.
But then you're saying everybody who does kelp has to have a public, would you be?
No, what I'm saying is that anybody who's participating in kelp and has a publicly available server the normal default would be that their statistics would be visible, because if I want to use their server, I'd like to know what their statistics are like.
Sure.
Fundamentally, the purpose of kelp is, in one view of Cameo, is to say, I need to have this service done. I need to have my ligand docked. I need to have my protein folded. Which service should I use? Let me look at the statistics. Oh, for my kind of protein, this looks like a good one. Let me use that one.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, maybe everybody who has a publicly available server has a right or semi-obligation or expectation of having their statistics public. Okay.
Yeah, even if it's not a server,
yes,
yeah.
Indeed. Just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How many people are participating in kelp?
We have the final number.
I don't think we're going to share that just because we have some statistics up and we told people that they were going to remain anonymous. So.
None of
in the future, we'll have a talk and we'll see if we can share it.
John?
I just want to say, I really like the idea of taking a chemical data and trying to see if that would use that.